Hello everyone, my name is X. So before I start the guide, I want to introduce myself. And if you aren't interested in hearing this, I have timestamps in the video so you guys could go ahead, skip to the runes and the builds. So I've been playing League since Season 5 and been making those in Season 6. I decided to climb on Season 15 and I climbed from Plot 1 to Grandmasters with a 60% win rate in 3 weeks. Having the most games in NA on Z above D2, and I peaked rank 2 Z NA. I play mid with a jungle secondary, with Zed and Talon as my main picks for both roles, and Nefiri and Kha'Zix if they're both banned. I only play AD Assassins. To me, it's just the most fun role in the game. And I feel like a lot of people have questions about this season with Zed, and I'm going to try to answer them all with this video. So let's get started. So the first new thing that added about Season 15 is the new objective Atakahn. It spawns at 20 minutes and there are two forms, Voracious and Ruinous, both with different rewards. The form will be determined depending on how many kills are in the game, and it will also spawn on the side of the map with the most kills. Like, it spawns here in top lane, but it could also spawn here in bot lane, in this spot in the river. You can check which form spawn by pressing tab and like hovering above on the icon. You can see right here it says Voracious Atakahn. The only thing I'm going to say about this is that if you're jungling and you're taking Atakahn, kite in a circle so you could avoid its like beam attacks, like the circular, whatever that is. And like you see how much damage I'm taking? It's because, let's see, this circular zone that's doing right now, it hurts a lot, so kite in circles to avoid like its beam attack, and once it has a circle zone, just walk out. It does way too much damage. There are also feats of strength, which are 3 kills, first turret, or killing 3 objectives. And the team that does 2 out of 3 of these first get a free upgrade to their tier 2 boots, which for Lucidity is only 5 ability haste, it's not too big. But the new big thing about this season is the tier 3 boots, which the team that won the feats of strength will get access to it once you build 2 legendary items. I'll go deeper into these builds and boots later, but I'm going to say now that you're only going to build Symbiotic Souls and Lucidity on Zed in most games. And you could build Tabbies and Mercs, but probably only like once every 20 games. And the upgraded, like the tier 3 versions of them are not really good for Assassins. The most important thing about these boots is that they're super overrated right now. A lot of people will throw games for these boots thinking that they're game winners, but they're not. Like, this was the exact same case for Void Grubs when they came out. I'd rather get like a tier 2 turret than rather than group and then throw for the Feats of Strength. Even if you can build them, like, I'd only probably build them after I get 3 core, because Zed is one of the best 3 core assassins in the game. And even for assassin in general, like, damage is your only purpose, so spending like 750 gold to upgrade your boots and delaying your spike, or like not building damage directly, can actually hurt you in some cases. And I'd probably only build them once like I'm sitting on components and I can't upgrade like items, like if I'm sitting on Shogun components and then I don't have enough. So I just build this, right? But this is like only after I build my damage items. Or another case is like if you're really ahead of the enemy team, like you're like 10 kills or whatever, and you don't need more damage, so you want to stay ahead with like, you want to get more utility or movement speed to stay ahead, which is actually not bad to build them in that case if you're very ahead. But the worst mistake I see for people this season is that they're rushing the boots in like every situation. The boots are decent, but they aren't really game breaking, and you have to know when to build them. There is no specific timing, since everything is different, but you have to learn to judge when to build them. Teleport is reworked, and it's not as strong as last season. So basically, instead of instantly teleporting, you kind of turn into a ball and you have to travel to your location. But the trade-off is that you can teleport to minions and wards and anything else before 10 minutes. But the reason why TP is weaker in this meta is because of the Feats of Strength. And like, it just requires more lane prio, killing, and fighting in general. A lot of stuff that Ignite will help you with, but TP won't. Especially with the roses that spawn. Like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, these roses will spawn where enemies die, and you kind of click on them like jungle plants, and you harvest them for team-wide XP and adaptive force. Like, right now, this is what I'm getting. And my entire team gets this because I collected the roses, and anything that they collect, I'll also get. But since the roses spawn where people die, like, the team that has more map control will be able to harvest more roses and in general just be more ahead. So snowballing in this meta is better than last season. So Ignite, I would say, is stronger in most cases. I take Ignite in most of my games. And it's another reason is that TP is very bad before 10 minutes. Like, look how long I have to channel and teleport. It's super slow. You basically only use it to get back to lane. Like, you can't TP balling to roam because it takes so long to channel, and like enemies will just see it and react to it. So before 10 minutes, only use TP to get back to lane. And I'll show you the difference at 10 minutes once you get Unleashed Teleport. It's so much faster, and it's actually like, it's basically the same as last season. It's a summoner spell now after 10 minutes, but
secrets kept, our weapons wasted.
But yeah, you move a lot quicker. You could use it like old teleport, just siding with TP and then TPing to fights as they happen. Before 10 minutes, you can't TP to other lanes. It takes too long. Enemies will just see it and disengage. So I think teleport is still decent in higher elo games where you have to manage side lanes. But I still usually take Ignite in most games. Like, you'd only take TP if your top lane or bot lane doesn't have teleport and you can side into the enemy team. I still feel like every team should have one teleport, so if your top laner is like a Riven or like a Jace that plays super aggro and has Ignite, then you might want to consider taking TP. But even then, like, if the enemy team has like a Nasus or a Malphite, someone that you can't kill or you can't push into turrets, like they'll just wave clear it or like outbase damage you and tank your damage, then TP is not really that good in those situations because you can't side. But you guys have to be the judge of that. It's depending on every team comp. If you want to take like TP or Ignite or like with summoner spells, you can also take Ignite and TP into some certain like kill lanes. Like if you're up against a mage and you need Ignite to kill them. But you also want TP because your top laner and bot don't have TP and you still want to manage size. It's still viable to take Ignite TP. But you guys have to assess every game and take the summoner spells according. Also, turrets shoot a bit faster. So if you're like under tower and you're farming against the mage, you might have to time your autos or your Qs like a bit quicker because it shoots a bit faster and minions will die. So just be wary of that. There are new runes as well this season. For the domination tree, they removed the middle section. There's no more eyeball collection, ghost portal, or zombie ward. Instead, we have Sixth Sense, which is basically an umbral glaive effect. It's shit. It's really shit. Until they buff it more. Do not take this. This is deep ward. Basically, your wards will have more health in enemy jungle. It's pretty good actually, but not for assassins, not for Zed. You would take this on support or like Pike or whatever. Whoever wants to take these, who also wants to ward a lot, but most assassins will be taking red drink anyway, so this won't be useful. And there's also Grizzly Mementos, which is basically you get Trinket haste on champion takedowns. So you'll get your red trinket up more often late game once you get more takedowns and kills. And this is definitely the best option out of the three for Zed or assassins in general. Don't take Sixth Sense. This is garbage. Keyboards for supports. Brazilian Mentos is your best case right now as of this patch 15.2, 15.3 soon, but they also added another rune called Axiom Arcanist, which basically it gives your ultimate more damage and you'll get cooldown reduction if you take down an enemy champion. But this is currently bugged on Zed. If you ult someone and you kill them without swapping back to your shadow, like your alt shadow is still swappable if you kill someone, you won't get any alt refund CD. And it's been like this since the beginning of the season. So don't take this. It's bad. As of now, it's not that good until they bug fix it. So yeah, don't take this. Unless you're taking like a Comet Rune page, I'll go into more detail with it. I prefer Axiom Arcanus over Nimbus Cloak in some lanes, so take this only if you're going like Comet Rune page. But if you're taking Domination, the Sorcerer secondary, I would definitely avoid Axiom Arcanus. Just go like standard Transcendent Scorch. And the last thing I want to go over for season 15, like all the new stuff, is Mel, which is the new champion. Yeah, she has a reflect in her kit, and her Q is really fast. It's like a super fast Karthus Q. I'm not gonna go for abilities or go into the matchup, but maybe I'll make a video explaining the matchup later if you guys want it. Just let me know in the comments or whatever. But she's not a super hard matchup for Zed. It's just a classic mage matchup. But she has like a lot more defensive capabilities because she has like her E roots and reflect, so you have to play around both. I would say she is, like an okay matchup. It's still Zed favored, but you can lose a matchup easily if you play lane really bad. But it's not worth banning. I'd rather ban other champions. Like I ban most games just permaban Skarner because I can't really play the game if he just CCs me for 18 seconds straight, but I feel like a lot of lanes Zed can play into if you play correctly. Or just, yeah, play to your strengths. The first setup I want to go over is the classic mid-lane assassin. You'll be going this setup into squishy lanes and comps where your win con is to assassinate one or more targets as quickly as possible. There are 3 rune pages with this setup, and you'll be taking Flash Ignite as your spells. So for each rune page, I'll go over it, then I'll go over the entire build in general, and then I'll go into my match history and break down my thought process with the builds and runes for each specific example. So the first rune page for Millennium Assassin is Electrocute. I don't think I need more anymore explaining. It's just like bursts where you can like kill lanes. Like if you have like a squishy mage lane and they also have like a Lulu Kog'Maw ball lane where they have a squishy ball lane where you need to burst. You would take this page. So Electrocute, Transformatory. Between Taste of Blood and Sudden Impact, most cases I take Sudden Impact unless the lane is very heavy poke, like Orianna or like a Hui, then I'll take Taste of Blood just to survive. Because Sudden Impact is not a laning rune, you take it outside of lane because when you WQ poke in lane, you're not gonna proc it at all because you're not swapping to your shadow. So Taste of Blood for lane, Sudden Impact for out of lane. Like if you're into like a Yoni or something, something squishy that you don't need sustain for, but you need like more out of lane damage, or like a Silas, you would take sudden impact. I say most cases sudden impact, taste of blood if you struggle with the lane. I already went over this rune tree like a while ago, and you will always be taking Resident Mementos unless they buff the other two or whatever. Third tree, usually Ultimate Hunter, Zed is a very ultimate reliant champion, and they kind of gutted his ult cooldown a few patches ago, or seasons, I forgot one, but it was pretty bad. Standard secondary for the Electrocute tree is Transcendent Scorch. Self-explanatory. Transcendence is good CDR. Scorch is good lane damage, so you can like pressure solo kills. But there are a very few specific matchups that I would not take Scorch in because it would not be efficient. Let's say the three I can think of at the top of my head are Galio, Malzahar, and Kassadin. Because Scorch does magic damage. Galio has a magic shield. Malzahar has a passive shield that can block Scorch damage, so there's no point in taking it in that lane. Kassadin also takes reduced magic damage, so I would say in those lanes, take Transcendence Axiom Arcanist. It's a very specific example. I already know I said before Axiom Arcanist isn't that good, but it is probably the best in those matchups if you can't take Scorch in. There's also a secondary rune page that you could go into very high burst lanes, and it's the Resolve tree with bone plating. So I would just take bone plating and demolish because all these other runes suck on Zed. And demolish and bone plating are the only ones that you get value from in this setup. But you would take these into Fizz, Silas, Irelia, and Kiana. Just all the lanes that like are very solo kill hard burst. They want to kill you, but they can't reliably like poke you out or proc the bone plane before going in. And a lot of other examples would be like bruisers mids like Pantheon, Renekton, Garen, Riven, Tryndamere that really just want to chunk you down in like one trade. Bone plating is a really good counter to these lanes. And you could also take it with the first strike page that I'll tell you about, but I'll go over that later. Second rune page that goes with Assassin Zed setup is Comet. And you would take this rune page into mage matchups where they outrange you a lot and you can't hide from their poke in a wave. So what I mean by that is like I wouldn't take Comet into like Ari and Zoe because their main trade relies on them hitting you like directly, like Ari Charm, Zoe Bubble. If they hit you with like an REQ, if you're hiding in the wave, it won't do that much damage. It'll still do damage, but it's like it's not as bad as like taking their full combo to the face. So they can't really outrange you in that sense. You could like hide behind your minions as safety in a sense. But I'm talking about mages that will outrange you. It doesn't matter if you hide in the wave because they will poke you down just as much, even if you are like beside or in the wave. So you have to like play outside, and you're just getting outranged constantly. So the matchups that I would take Comet in are Nico, Victor, Syndra, Oriana, Hui, Vex, and Xerath. You could also take Electrocute in these matchups as well because they're also immobile mages, and you don't have to play for lane. You can just play for out of lane, just killing them with Electrocute. But if you feel like in high elo or you're in higher elo with games are harder and these mages are like outspacing you like really badly, then Comet I think is the best turn to go for those situations. So Comet, I would take Axiom Arcanist here. I don't like Nimbus Cloak unless you're taking Conqueror, because you don't really need extended autos. You just need more for the damage. Even though it's bugged, it's still okay in some cases. Transcendence, Scorch, standard stuff. And if you follow on Zed or like a lot of other like Z1 tricks, they like to take Legend Haste and Cut Down into Mage or with Comets. But I like Cut Down in a sense because you're playing Comet and Scorch, so you really want to poke down the enemy. But these two upper trees, I don't think they synergize well with the Comet playstyle. Because Comet's just about poking down and like bursting people like out of lane. You don't really need more haste on your abilities because you're building assassin, you're gonna one shot people anyways. You don't need more haste on your abilities. And you don't need Presence of Mind because you're not spamming your abilities with Conqueror Build, you're just one-shotting because you're building Assassin with Comet. And these other runes just suck as well. So what I like to do is I take Taste of Blood and Ultimate Hunter. This is my Comet rune tree because in these lanes that you're getting poked down like really heavily and from really far, you're gonna need Taste of Blood for mage lanes. And Ultimate Hunter, you get your ulti up faster than the enemy mage, you're gonna kill them more often. So I like this rune page with Comet. You still can take Precision Secondary with Taste and cut down, but I just think this is my most preferred Comet rune page against mages. So the third rune page that I'll go with Assassin's Head is First Strike, but it is pre-situational because you could only go First Strike into lanes and comps that are low range and let you reliably proc your First Strike in. Like lanes, for example, like Silas and Lysandra, low range, you can get your free damage and gold off and possibly solo kill them. But you also have to take into account the enemy comp, like if they have like a Ashe, Caitlyn, Jhin, ADC, or like a Teemo top lane that'll just stream the map and they'll proc your first strike before you even get a chance to throw your damage out. Yeah, taking this into account because like if they damage you, you're playing without a keystone and you're at a disadvantage. So only go first strike into like comps where you could proc it in. So for this tree, you would go magical footwear. I think cashback takes too long to get going, and in this meta, you want to fight more. Unless you're going like a scaling setup, which I'll go over later. But this tree, triple tonic, biscuit is good into poke lanes, but you also gain max health, and Zed doesn't really build health, so I would not go biscuit. And the last tree just causes insight. I know there's a bunch of builds with like jack of all trades with you starting Doran's Blade or building Mercs, but it's very situational and I don't think it's consistent enough. I think you could try to play for it, but I think in most cases just calling it sight is the best thing to go. Jack of all trades, I don't really fuck with it that much. It's too situational and just most games I just wanted to cover insight. Secondary tree, same as Electrocute secondary, you just go Transcendence, Scorch. Yeah, not much else to explain here. Mm, yeah. You could also go your bone plating and demolish in this page against those matchups I mentioned before. If you're going first strike into like Silas or like Fizz or whatever, but yeah, this would be the standard page for first strike with Ignite on the Assassin's Head setup. I just want to go a little bit into more detail about bone plating secondary or just resolve secondary to some matchups. Like I said, I would go into like Silas Fizz because they have to all in and they can't like proc your bone plating that reliably. I guess you could do it with Silas Q, but you can dodge Silas Q pretty easily. I wouldn't take bone plating into all assassin matchups because there's some assassins that do have poke to them, like Talon and Akali. They could just Q or W your bone plating away, and then you don't have a rune. So just the all-in assassins or all-in characters that can't proc your bone plating with like a poke ability or like a basic ability that would take that tree in. Okay, this is the build for Assassin Ignite Zed. You would start with Longsword Refillable, unless the lane is very heavy poke, like as mentioned before, like very high poke lanes that you think you need to sustain in, like Victor or Oriana. Just take the shield. It's really broken. And your boots are gonna be Symbiotic Souls. I know, no lucidity, but lucidity is not as good this season. I feel like you don't really need the haste. And with TP being shit and you take Ignite most games, especially with this setup, you're taking Ignite, you can just reset with home guards because home guards are always active, and you have the 3-second recall from these boots. These boots are really, really good if you could get a good buy for them. You could just reset really quickly and just impact the map so fast. Like it's a get out of jail free card. Like you can just push the lane, like sacrifice all your HP and recall, and you just have you won't miss a minion if you come back because you recall so fast. And there's home guards in base. So I think in lanes that you're getting poked down really, really hard, and you could afford to rush these boosts first, like if you magically get 900 gold on the first back against a Victor lane and you start a D shield, rush these boots. They're really good. But other than that, like if you're not getting poked down too hard or you're like in another matchup like whatever, like Yasuo or Silas, then rush your first item. Then you could build the boot second. I just want to go a bit into more detail as to why you're going Symbiotic Souls with this setup. And it's because you're going Assassin's Head with Ignite. You're not going Conqueror. You're not rotating through your spells. You're trying to one-shot people, so you don't really need the ability haste from Lucidity boots. And you're also taking Ignite. You're not taking TP. You're not able to rotate around the map with TP. So you need your Baron recall and your movement speed. And you need to abuse Home Guard so that you can rotate around the map faster without TP. If you're taking Conqueror, even with Ignite, Symbiotic Souls are not as good. You need Lucidity if you're taking Conqueror. And if you're taking like another setup like Scaling Z with TP, you don't need Symbiotic Souls because you have TP. So take Lucidity in that case as well. Okay, so now we're gonna go into the core items. And I'm not gonna go into like build this item first, build this item second, third, fourth, fifth item, because I feel like every game is different and you need to learn when to build each item. So I'm just gonna go over through each item and like what are the best item combos and when to build them in which situations. I think that is the best way to build Zed and to play him in general. It shouldn't be a static build that you go each game. So Voltaic is standard into most squishy comp, squishy lanes if you're building Assassin's Zed. But I only go Voltaic first if I don't need the Eclipse Shield from like if I don't need like the safety or the defensiveness it gives. Like the Eclipse matchups like Akali, Diana, Silas, Fizz, Galio, Aurelia, Malphite, Yone, Yasuo, you need the shield to be able to play the game. So if you're not rushing Eclipse, you're rushing either Voltaic or Hubris. Let's go into Voltaic versus Hubris. Voltaic, you'll go if you need the Edge of Night second, because Voltaic Edge of Night combo is really good against mages that have 1CC ability like a Vex, a Lux, an Ahri, Kiana, that you need the Edge of Night second. Go Voltaic Edge of Night. This combo is very good, but only go if you need Edge of Night second, right? This is the reason why you're going to build in the first place. But if you don't need Edge of Night second and you're into still squishy comps, like you're into like a Corki, Tristana, Victor, where they don't have like a specific ability that you need to block with Edge of Night, you could go Hubris first. And I know what you're saying. Hubris is a bad item. Like Hubris is only good for snowballing. It's not. I don't believe the Hubris propaganda that people tell you. Look at the stats. Voltaic gives 55 AD, 18 lethality, and 10 ability haste. Hubris gives 60 AD, 18 lethality, 10 ability haste. 5 more AD, plus 15 and whatever how many stacks you have. So this gives a lot of AD, right? And you're still building Voltaic if you build Hubris, so you could build them together. But you get a lot of stats from Hubris. Even in like high elo games, you're still getting decent value if you get like a kill or two. And the build path is really good. You build it out of Dirk and Caulfield. Like this is such a good build path. You don't have to back on a pickaxe for Voltaic. This is a good item. Don't listen to people saying that Hubris is bad. It's a decent item. You just have to know when to build it. So Voltaic Edge of Night if you need Edge of Night first. If you need Edge of Night second, I mean. And if you don't need Edge of Night, you could go Hubris Voltaic for the first two items. And I mentioned Eclipse, and you're gonna rush Eclipse into those melee lanes. And you're probably not going to build Hubris with Eclipse because you need the utility from Voltaic and Edge of Night. So Eclipse into Voltaic, Eclipse to Edge of Night if you need the shield. But yeah, that's my explanation for like the first two item slots. Third item, usually if you need the Edge of Night and let's say you build Hubris Voltaic, you still need the Edge of Night, you build a third. Or if you got the Feats of Strength from the Symbolic Souls and you get this Forever Forward boots, you can build Yomu's, but only build it after you get the upgrade because you get a lot of movement speed and Yomu's like synergizes really well with it. So you could get like so much movement speed and move around the map. Like it's really broken. If you get the tier 3 boots, just buy Yomu's as soon as you complete the boots or get the tier 3 boots. Yeah, just build Agenite if you need it, third, but I like to build armor pen items third because I feel like people will just build Zanias or Death Stance and you'll do literally zero damage to them. Even with Tabbies, like armor is just too broken. And you just want to get your armor pen online right away. Even if they don't have armor, I still would like to get my armor pen item third because I want to be ahead of the curve, right? I don't want them to build it and then I'm like, damn, I have no armor pen. I do literally zero damage. I want to have it first, and even if like they don't have armor, then I'll still be doing damage to them because I'm like I have armor pen. Even everyone has armor in the game. So there is no specific order where you build these. It's just like you build them when you think you should build them. But like armor pen sort of standard. They buff Lord Doms to 40% armor pen at the time of this recording, but I don't think it's worth. I think Zed relies too much on CDR for his ulti and his W. Don't go it. If you need healing reduction, Moral Reminder is actually decent because they buffed it to 35% armor pen. So you're up against like if you're up against like Vladimir, Aatrox, Soraka, it's a decent buy. And you could also go Black Cleaver with Assassin build. If your team is like full AD and you want to help your team out by shredding their armor, and if no one on your team has Black Cleaver, then you can build it. Or if you're up against like Rammus, Malphite, or Cassante, where they all have armor scalings, Black Cleaver is pretty good. But with the first strike rune setup, you would not take Black Cleaver because you're prioritizing Burst, and Cerilda and Moral Reminder will get you more gold in general. So don't go Black Cleaver if you have first strike. So now we're going into like the later or the situational items, which would be either in your like fourth or fifth slot. So Serpent's Fang, I would say you could even build this like second or third item, depending on like what you need in the game. But I would only build it if they have like two or more sources of really big shielding in the game. Like Ivern is a really big shield source. Set W, Sterax, Seraphs, Lulu, Karma, right? These are really big shielding. I would say two or more of those threats on the enemy team, I would build Serpents, but also depends how ahead and behind you are in the game. Like if you're really ahead and like the enemy support is like 08 or something, right? You don't really need to worry about Serpents that much because they won't have much shielding to begin with in the first place. But if you're like kind of behind or like equal, Serpents is a good way to help your team out as well. So you could also just build it like second or third if you really need it. But yeah, you just have to learn when to build it. I'm sorry about like the build format, but I believe this is the best way to play Zed. You can't distinguish items into like first, second, third items. You just have to know when to build what. And I would say Profane and Axiom, you would build them in the exact same slot, but you would build them like on different situations. Like I think this Profane Axiom is like a fourth or fifth item, but usually you can only have like one extra slot that you wouldn't need like any of these items. You just need either just more damage. And you would build Axiom if you are ahead and you're snowballing. You get more kills, you get more ulti refunds. So build Axiom then in your later items. But if you're like equal or you're like losing, Profane is better because you need the wave clear. Let's say if you're losing and they have like super minions pushing in your base, Profane helps with the wave clear. Profane helps you get more gold, helps you get back in the game with wave clearing, and yeah, it helps you get kills in general because Profane is just straight up damage, where Axiom is you get rewarded for having damage. So if that makes sense, you go Axiom if you get kills, and you get Profane if you're like having trouble getting kills, or like the game is kind of just neutral in a sense, and you need to like you don't think you'll get enough value off Axiom. And then Maw, Death Dance is kind of self-explanatory. I'm not a huge fan of Death Dance, it's too expensive, and there's not many comps where they're just full AD, destroying you with attack damage. There are some comps with Maw. I don't really like building them even in general because I feel like assassins you have to like one-shot people, and building defensive kind of defeats the point of playing assassin, but they're viable in very rare comps. I'd probably say 1 in 20 as well. So yeah. And for the sixth item slot, if you got your tier 3 boots and yeah, you're just sitting on a 5 items with boots, you're good. Just buy like a red potion now, right? Don't sell your boots. The boots are really valuable. But if you lost the Feast of Strength and you don't have the tier 3 upgrades, sell your symbiotic souls for Yomus. You'll just have more damage and yeah. But this is like very late game situational, so if you got the Feast of Strength, just keep your boots. If you didn't get your boots upgrade, just sell your boots and go Yomus. I know it could be pretty confusing with the way I explain this build, but if anyone has any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll answer them, or reach out to me on my socials and just ask me like what should I build here, or like what do you think I should build to this comp or what game, and I'll try to answer it half the time. But yeah, I know this is pretty confusing, especially for like new players or players that don't really understand the game that well, but I just think this is how to build and plays out properly. So this is the first example of me going Electrocute Rune page with the Assassin's Ed build. And I'm just going to explain my thought process on why I went the runes and why I went the build. So I got their comp, they have 5 squishies. So immediately Electrocute and Assassin playstyles on the table. I don't need Comet because I'm not getting outranged by Talon in this lane. I can't take First Strike because they have a Mel, Caitlyn, Janna, they'll proc my First Strike right away. And I can't take Conquer because I don't want extended trades against these guys. I just want to burst them like 100 to 0 them. That's my win con. So I'll be taking Electrocute this game. I thought I was originally up against a Mel mid, and that lane is really poke heavy, so I took Taste of Blood. But if I knew it was Talon, I would have taken Sudden Impact. I kind of tunnel vision there, so that was my fault. The rest of the runes are standard. So I built Hubris first item because I don't really need Edge of Night to this comp. There's not like a singular really huge spell, CC spell that I need to dodge. So I decided to go Hubris this game because I could just get my Voltaic second, and that's like Voltaic second and Voltaic first are kind of the same. So I just wanted Hubris for more damage. I got my Symbiotic Souls after I got Hubris, and then I got Edge of Night third because they didn't really have too much armor. Maybe I should have built um Cerilda's. They started building armor, but they never did, so I just went Edge of Night to be more defensive. Because they don't have like one big ability that I could block, but if I could just block like one tick of like Talon passive or a Caitlyn net, then it'd be really nice. But at the same time, I don't want to like get blown up, but I still want to do damage, so Edge of Night is good in that situation. And I got Serpents because they have Janna shielding, Echo W shield, and they had a Seraphs on Mel. And they didn't start building armor, so I didn't really need to struggle this yet. So maybe I should have built Shroud sooner, but I just felt like in this case they just never did. So Serpent's fourth because they have like see two or more big shield threats, and I'm already counting three here, so that's my thought process for this game. So that's an example of me going the Comet Rune page with the Assassin setup, and the main reason I'm going Comet is because of Victor. I already mentioned before. He outranges you, he pokes you down hard, so Comet is pretty good. And I just want to go Assassin because their team is really squishy, like as opposed to me going Conqueror or something else, or a more bruisery build. I opted for Comet Assassin. This is bugged. The OP.GG is bugged. I took Axiom Arcanist instead of Nullifying Orb. It's not in the game anymore. This is just standard rune page. I went over the reasoning before, but I started D Shield and Symbiotic Souls because Victor is a very heavy poke lane. I just needed to survive. I got my Symbiotic Souls because I farmed well, so I could just reset back whenever I want. Sacrifice my health for a push. I'll be chilling. I built Voltaic into Edge of Night, but realistically, I could have just built Hubris if I wanted to, but I feel like I needed the Edge of Night safety because Rengar, Thresh, Volibear, if they CC you, you kind of just get one shot. But in reality, I could have built Hubris into Cycle Sword if I was feeling very cocky. Mm, I built Swirldos third because Volibear is very tanky, and yeah, Thresh, Rengar have the tier 3 armor boots. Plus, Victor went Zonia second, so I need the armor pen. And fourth, I went Serpents because counter shield threats. There's so many shield threats on their team. I just count like a cajillion because Volibear has his shielding in this kit. Rengar has a tier 3 boots. If you didn't know, this gives a shield as well. So that's a shield. It's not a big shield, but it's still a shield. Victor Victor has his Q, which is a shield. Kaisa has his ult, which is also a shield. Thresh W shield. He has Locket, and he also has a tier 3 boost as well. So I figured I need Serpents because they have a lot of shield threats. Even though they're not like super big, like a Sterax or like a Ivern or a Karma, but they have just like multiple very small shields or multiple instances, which I thought Serpents was pretty good for this game. This is the last example road page of me going first strike with the Assassin's Head setup. And so I went first strike into this comp because most of their team is pretty low range, like Pantheon, Udyr, yeah, so they all run at you, so you could get your combo off before they hit you. Um, Realistically, I should have took it into Jin, but I was just kind of just testing out builds and runes, and I thought this was like not the most terrible comp to build for strike into. And for runes, I know I said earlier that I would take um magical footwear and transcendence, but I was also still testing out runes. Like this is when I was in D4, so I would change this to magical footwear and transcendence. But Scorch into Yasuo is very good. If you didn't know, Yasuo has his passive shield up. You Q him, the Scorch goes through the shield and procs his bone plating like after, so Scorch is really good into Yasuo. So yeah, my build here was just standard Eclipse. I need to go Eclipse first because Yasuo is a melee range lane, and if I could proc my damage and block damage at the same time, I get a lot of value out of it. I built Serpent second this game because they have a lot of shields, and Yasuo rush shield both second. If I felt like I didn't have it, then I wouldn't have been able to kill him. And I don't know. I've been trying to find games where I didn't build serpents in, but I feel like I don't build it that often. And like I know all three examples I've shown had serpents in them, but I'm just trying to like explain my builds and hopefully give you like thought process on like how to build and when to build it. Because I feel like it's a really important skill to climb, especially. But yeah, serpents. Let's see. Pantheon top has the tier 3 shield, boots, Eclipse shield. Udyr has his W shield, which is like 3,000 million health. He has his shield boots as well. Yasuo rush shield bow. He has his passive shield. And I just thought that I couldn't side against Yasuo without Serpents, so I just built it, Eclipse Serpents. Then I built Mortal Reminder because they have a lot of healing as well. Pantheon. Oh yeah, he was building Sundered Scout. He didn't have it yet, but Udyr also healing like his entire health bar 3 times over. Yasuo has lifesteal. Soraka just in general I need heal reduction for, so I built that. And yeah, I built Axiom because I was 14 kills. I mean 11 kills. I was really ahead. If I was behind, I probably would have built Profane because it's like I told you, Profane and Axiom are interchangeable depending on how ahead you are or how behind you are in the game. I just built Edge and Knight last because in Pantheon stun, Soraka silence, right? If I get hit by those, I insta die late game. So I just built a late game to protect myself. So the second setup or playstyle I want to talk to you guys about is Conqueror Z. Now I will go Conqueror Z into more beefier comps, which not necessarily have more tanks in them, but like more bruisers or people that you slightly need to engage in longer fights with, like to have like 2, 3 bruisers or maybe 2 bruisers a tank. Not necessarily if your laner is tanky, because it could be like a squishy lane, but you still take Conqueror as well if the comp needs it. And Conqueror is not bad at squish as well. You could still catch squishies off guard with Nimbus Cloak. So it really depends on the enemy comp. If they're really beefy and really brawly, then you'll need Conqueror. But yeah, it's all just a matter of judgment, and I'll go over the runes and the build, and I'll go over an example on match history as to why I took this setup and in what situations you would take it in. So yeah, Conqueror between Presence of Mind and Triumph, it's kind of preference wise, but I would prefer Presence of Mind always since I want to cast more abilities, get more Ws, get more Qs, get more energy. That's the point of the Conqueror build. Legend Haste, other two are garbage for mid lane. And Last Stand, I would say if you're into like a very like volatile lane that is super brawly like a Yasuo or a Galio or a Sylas, Last Stand, because you're definitely going to be a low HP when you fight these people. But if you're taking Conquer into like a squishier lane where you feel like you could maybe get away with not being super low health, like you could like poke them out, like a mage lane, I'd probably prefer cut down over Last Stand into mage lanes because I'm just trying to all in them, 100 to 0 them, and they won't really do the same to me. Of course, they'll poke me down, but like I feel like you'll get more value from cut down in mage lanes, and then you'll get more value in Last Stand into melee lanes or like bruiser lanes. Secondary, Transcendence, Nimbus Cloak every game. I don't think there's a better setup. Even if you take Ignite and TP, you still want the movement speed from Nimbus Cloak so you could like have some mobility with your summoner spells. And if you have Flash Ignite, then Nimbus Cloak is really good for getting solo kills on squishies or tanks alike. I mentioned before with the Assassin setup with Electrocute and First Strike page, you can also take Don't Putting Demolish. Still very strong setup against Salas Fizz, all the characters I mentioned before, all the champs, but uh, these are the Conquerors. I just want to mention a common misconception about Conqueror, or just taking Conqueror on Zed in general, is that Conqueror will help you deal with tanks. Yeah, of course. Conqueror is going to help you deal with tanks better than Electrocute or any other setup on Zed, but Zed cannot kill tanks. Zed has not been able to kill tanks since Mythics were in the game. And if you're taking Conqueror just to solely deal with tanks, then you're playing Zed wrong. You're taking Conqueror to kill bruisers or very high value targets on their team. Like if they have an enemy like Hecarim or Viego on the team, or like Mordekaiser, where you could brawl with and like kill them if you have a Conqueror setup. If they have like a or Cassante and you're taking Conqueror to deal with them, you're playing Zed incorrectly. You cannot kill tanks on Zed. That is not what the champion is designed to do. You kill the most valuable target on the enemy team. That is your role as an assassin. And if Conqueror helps you do that better than Electrocute, then you take Conqueror over Electrocute. Here's the build for Conqueror Z, and starting items are going to be the usual longsword refillable or D shield into heavy poke lanes. I know some people like taking Doran's Blade into like very heavy brawl lanes like a Galio or a Silas, but I still prefer longsword start so you could get your Eclipse faster. And once you get Eclipse, you could actually start playing the game. So I don't want to flip the lane on a Doran's Blade because if you die or you get ganked, then you're delaying your Eclipse spike by so much it's not even worth. For boots, you're gonna go Lucidity like 90% of games. You go Armor or MR boots, but that's like a very small fraction of games you'll actually need them or they'll be very useful in. I would always rush Eclipse with Conqueror. Always build Eclipse. First item every single time you take Conqueror Z mid lane, you're rushing Eclipse. There is no better starting item. And then you're gonna rush your boots after. So Eclipse into boots every single game. Every single game you take Conqueror Z. This build is a lot more straightforward than the Assassin build. It's so once you build Eclipse, you have two options either to build Shojin or your armor pen item. Just look at the enemy comp if they're starting to build lots of armor, build Cleaver or Swirldas, and if they're not, build Shojin, and then build the other respective, like where you didn't build it. So I go Shojin, I'll build an armor pen third, and if I build armor pen second, then I'll build my Shojin third. This is the core for every Conqueror build. You're doing damage, lots of CDR, just being a menace in team fights and doing everyone with these items. So for Cleaver versus Srilda, most cases I would say you build Cleaver because you want to be tankier and help the team up by shredding armor. And I mentioned before, if you're up against armor scaling champs like Rammus, Malphite, Cassante, Cleaver is the go-to choice for sure. But I would probably just go Srildas if their team is like a lot more squishier and they're not really armor scaling, or if someone on your team, like you have a Jace or a Riven that's already building Black Cleaver, you want to kind of be greedy and build Cerilda so you can benefit off of the Black Cleaver shred. You don't really want two Black Cleavers in a comp. But if they're like more squishier and you think you could like one-shot people with Eclipse, Trojan, Cerildas, you could probably go for Cerildas instead of Cleaver. It depends on the comp and how fed you are at the moment. So you're going to be building these three items usually first for every single Conqueror Z game. I would say maybe slip in a Serpent's Fang earlier if you're up against like insane shielding, or maybe just buy like a Executioner sword, just buy the components earlier, like after your second item. But usually these three items, core item on Conqueror Z, you're going to build this like 90% of games as well. And these are the situational items that you'll build after, like, so fourth item and on. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you don't really need any of the other, like, defensive situationals, you'll build Sundered Sky and Axiom for maximum CDR and just getting a lot of, yeah, spells out, rotating a lot of spells. If they have a CC spell, like Ari Kiana, or like something, just one spell that's, like, very detrimental to your playstyle, probably Edge Knight, Serpent's Fan Shielding, Campunk for the healing reduction. So for the Assassin build, I put Mortal Reminder as armor pen item, but you really don't want to be building Mortal Reminder with a Conqueror build because you rely so heavily on CDR and getting your Conqueror stacks up. So you can build Chempunk's Chainsword if you need healing reduction. Sterax versus Edge of Night. I feel like so Edge of Night and Sterax, you'll both go if they have like a CC spell or like a really heavy CC comp. And Edge of Night is more like a singular spell, but if they have like a ton of CC and you know that you're gonna get like CC to hell, then Sterak's is better than Edge of Knights. Like if you're up against like Lissandra, Pantheon, Leona, that like one Edge of Night shield can't save you, you're probably just gonna go Sterak's. And in that comp, you'd probably go Mercs as well, because you need as much tenacity as possible. Death Dance into really heavy armor comps and Maw into heavy AP comps. Like these three items, and then build the two that you think you need out of these, right? Like if you don't need any of these situational and you just need pure raw damage, just build Thunder Sky into Axiom Arc. These are like the damaging items. And for your sixth item slot, if your team won the Feats of Strength and you got the Lucidity Boost upgrade, just keep them. They're really good for Conqueror Zone, and just buy a pot. But if your team did it and you still have tier 2 boots, then you're going to sell your boots for some other item. And if you didn't build Sundered Sky or Axiom Arc in your fourth or fifth item slot, because you needed these other situational items, then you're going to buy them now, sell your Lucidity boots for them. And even though I know people are going to be like, oh, you need movement speed and stuff, you're getting more ability haste for your boots, so you're not playing for movement speed, you're playing for W resets and just killing everything on the screen. So you could do that with Conqueror Z. With Assassin Z, you could sell your boots for UMs because it doesn't have CDR. You don't rely on CDR in that build. You one-shot people. You don't need to cast multiple Ws. So sell your boots for Axiom or Cedric Sky if you didn't buy before. Or if you bought them, you could sell your boots for Yomus since you have a lot of CDR already. But if you want the movement speed, I wouldn't recommend buying any other situationals and six items because they're again situational. They're not going to be good in every comp. And then you could sell them for Yomus if you're ahead, you want damage. If you have a really heavy armor team, you could sell your boots for Guardian Angel. And if they're really heavy MR team, just get Force of Nature to get movement speed. So I took Conqueror this game because looking at their comp, it could have been Window Jungle, Fiora top, and Diana mid, but ended up being Diana jungle, Fiora mid, and Window top. But for both variants, I think Conqueror is the best option because they have very prominent bruisers on their team, like Diana and Fiora. If they get fed, they could easily take over a game, so I need to be able to side against them and duel them. Plus, Mundo is an exception to the tank rule because I said you can't kill Cassante or Ornn because they stack hella armor, but Mundo is a health tank, and he doesn't build armor until like fourth, third item, so if you're decently ahead with Eclipse Black Cleaver, you could kill a Mundo if you're even or ahead. So Mundo is an exception to the tank rule because he's a health tank, not an armor tank. For my runes, I mess up a bit. I should have taken Last Stand instead of Cut Down because I'm in melee lanes that fight more and I would be on lower health. And I should have taken Nimbus Cloak instead of Scorch just to have more kill pressure and mobility. But yeah, my build is standard, as I explained before. Eclipse, Lucidity Boots, Cleaver, because they were stacking armor like Tabbies, and Diana had Unending Despair. Mundo was starting to build defenses as well, so I wanted to be ahead of the curve and build Armor Pen before they got armor. And third item was Shojin, the standard trifecta for Conqueror Z. I built Executioners third, and if I got to fifth item, I probably would have built the Serpent's Fang because they have Yumi and Diana, which are really big shielders. And as a Conqueror Z, I need to like proc more like status effects like Executioners, or like Grievous Wounds and Serpent's Fang because I have a lot of CDR and late game Yumi with shielding, and if Fiora bought Sterak's, it would have been very annoying. And I need to help my team out. Another thing to add is that I did not take TP this game, or I mean Ignite TP or Flash TP, even though I could, because my ADC and my top lane both have TP, and that would be redundant, and we only need one TP. So that's why I didn't take it. The last mid lane setup that I want to show you guys is the scaling first strike Zed. It's very situational, but if you find the right comps to build it in, it's a lot of fun, and you'll feel like Mythic Items Zed again with how much damage you're doing. So the summons you would take would be Flash CP because you're playing to scale inside and gain as much gold as possible. You're not taking Ignite because you're not going to kill anyone anyways. You're taking First Strike, but you also want to take First Strike into comps where you could proc it in. I mentioned before, just low range mid laners and low range ADCs that can't proc your First Strike. And I would especially look for this setup if I'm up against like a tank mid laner that has low range. I could just freely skill off them, get so much gold, and just side, and then I can just one shot their ADC because of how fed I am off First Strike. But yeah, you just have to find the opportunities where you could run this build. It's not super common, but I think it is a viable build that people should be aware of. So First Strike, you're playing full scaling, so cash back to get as much gold as possible. Triple tonic, Cosmic Insight, I already mentioned them before. The other options are kind of bad. And you're taking Absolute Focus because it gives the most AD at level 18. It scales from level 1 to 18, where Transcendent scaling stops at level 11. So you're getting value out of getting higher levels for Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm. So you're just getting the most AD possible in this build. And your goal is just to scale and just become like an insane damage machine. So for the scaling Zed build, it's pretty straightforward. Starting items are the same. Longsword refill in most lanes. D-shield if you really need the sustain. But if I was going D-shield into like a poke lane, I wouldn't be even going this build in the first place because I'm taking first strike and I kind of don't want to get my first strike poked out. So you probably won't be building this in many games, but or any games at all. But I just want to put it out there as an option if you do decide to go with the build. Boots or lucidity, 90% of games. First item will be hubris. You want the most AD and damage as possible with this setup, and hubris will help you do that. Second item, profane. You're clearing waves, AoEing people with your first strike. This is a lot of damage. And third item, you're going for an armor pen item. So the LDR or Mortal Reminder, depending on what you need. Like Cyrilda Standard, if they have like a lot of armor, like the armor stacking or Dom is a good option. I haven't tested this out yet, but I think in theory it's viable. And Mortal Reminder if they have healing, right? Like a Vladimir plus Soraka, right? Not like you wouldn't build this if there's not too much healing, but if there's a fuck ton of healing, then you're building it. So, you know how I said earlier, Eclipse, Black Cleaver, Shojin are the holy trifecta of Conqueror Z? Well, this is the holy trifecta of First Strike Scaling Z. Hubris, Profane, and Armor Pen item. You're not building Black Cleaver because you want more burst damage for your first strike. And for the later situational items, you're building Edge of Night if you need like CC reduction or you're blocking a spell, Serpents if they have shielding. But if they don't have CC or shielding, you're just building Axiom Arc into Sundered Sky. Like the amount of damage you get from these 5 items is like so insane. Like you're one-shotting everyone on the screen. And if you need one situational, you probably just replace Sundered Sky. You just build Axiom into situational, but if you need these 2 situationals, then you build both of them. And for your 6th item, again, if you won your Feats of Strength, keep your boots. They're pretty good value. Just buy Red Pot, but if you didn't, you saw the tier 2 boots, sell them and buy almost. So I decided to go scaling First Strike Z setup into this comp because they have very low range, like Belveth, Nyla, Vladimir. They can't really hit you in proper First Strike, so I want to go this build. And you kind of don't really want to go late game against a Kale and a Vladimir, but I feel like this comp was viable to take first strike and I really wanted to scale and just try this build out because it's a lot of fun. I want to share with you guys. Like you just do so much damage. It like really reminds me of like late games out a few seasons ago. So into this comp, I don't think it was the best setup, but it was definitely viable. The runes I already went over. I build Hubris, Profane, Cyrildas. Told you the first 3 items in this build always usually. Then I went Axiom and Sundered Sky because I didn't need the other situational items like Edge of Night and Serpents because they don't have many CC abilities or shielding. And then I just sold my boots for Yomus and Red Pots. Now we're on to Jungle Z. And this is a standard Conqueror setup. But before I get into it, I'm going to talk a bit just about how I think Zed Jungle should be played. So Zed is a very resource heavy champion. He needs experience and gold to effectively do his job as an assassin or a damage dealer. If he falls behind, he's fucking useless. So in Jungle Zed, you're very weak before level 6. Your ganks are ineffective. You can't duel most people until level 6, even with Conqueror. So you need to prioritize farming. And Zed's clear is very fast. So your role as Zed jungle is to abuse your fast clear speed to clear as many camps as possible and take objectives as well. You're very fast at taking objectives. So don't try to gank until you get your items or your level 6 because if you fall behind as Zed jungle, you're not going to be able to play the game. You need levels. You need gold. So just focus on farming. Ignore your team if they spam you to ping gank. Like, it's so annoying. Just farm your camps full clear, get your gold, get your objective, get your levels. Once you hit level 6 and get more items, then you can start ganking people. But before then, focus on gold accumulation. Even after, you just like, even after you hit level 6, you should still be clearing your camps because you clear them very fast. Try to counter jungle while enemy jungler is ganking. Try to take objectives. Just focus on gold accumulation most of the game. Only gank when you feel like you could get something for yourself. Like if bowling has both sums up, you're probably just gonna blow them and just not get the kills. You're just gonna blow the sums. Like it's not worth it. Because if you fall behind as that jungle, you're not a Maokai jungle, you're not a Zac. You're completely and utterly useless if you fall behind. So you have to stay ahead. You have to maintain like a level of like gold accumulation. That is how I play that jungle, and that's how I think the best way to play that jungle is. You have to farm and scale and play for yourself. But going into the rune setup, Conquer is because just you can duel more people with Conqueror. If you take Domination or Electrocute, you're not dueling people. And how I said before that you're only going to be farming and focusing on yourself and not ganking. If you take the Domination tree and you're not stacking your Mementos and your Ultimate Hunter, then it's like these are useless runes. You're gonna be farming most of the game anyways as Jungle Zed, so you want to take runes that you'll get value out of farming, and they'll be the same like level of strength if you didn't gank as well, like if that makes sense. Like that's why I don't like Dark Harvest on Zed, because you need to get value out of Dark Harvest and these other runes from ganking and hitting people, which Jungle Zed doesn't really do until later in the game. So you need to take Conquer because Conqueror will gain value like with you as a champion. You don't have to gank to get value. You will be stronger. Conqueror will be stronger the stronger you are, right? It'll have the same value no matter like if you ganked earlier or not. So that's why I think Conqueror is the best and most consistent rune on Zed jungle at the moment. There is another setup, but it's pretty situational, but I'll go over it later. So if that kind of makes sense, just you take Conqueror because it grows stronger as you farm, and you don't need to gank to get value out of it. Conqueror, Triumph just to get extra gold on ganks. Not getting much value out of Absorb Life or Presence of Mind because you're not ganking, right? You're farming most of the time. So when you are ganking, you want the most value out of a rune, and Triumph will give you the most value out of ganks because you're getting like health back. It could be clutch, and you're getting 20 gold. So, this is where people are a bit confused, but you'll take Alacrity instead of Haste because You're going to be using more attack speed in jungle anyways. You don't need more haste. I know it's a Conqueror build, but trust me, the attack speed for your like farming, like full clearing and taking objectives will be very helpful. It's more helpful than haste for sure. And for the last tree, this is also a bit controversial. I feel like these two are just off of my like game experience and game knowledge, but I'm taking Ku because when I do gank, you're not really getting any bursts from like domination tree or like if you take electrocuted or harvest, so you need coup de grace to make your ganks worth it. The conqueror setup, you're pretty squishy, so last hit isn't that good. You're just gonna be one shot most of the time or one shot people. Cut down is not very good for ganks because you're not gonna be ganking full health targets. Because again, as Zed jungle or as a jungler in general, you want to make value out of your ganks. I don't want to gank people and they just blow flashes and that's it. Like, I need a kill. I'm not clearing for this gank, so I need to get something out of it. And I think Ku will help you solidify value in gank because you're ganking like half health or lower health targets only because you want kills. You're making sure you're like only ganking stuff that you know you could kill. So Ku will help with that. And Magical Footwear, Cosmic Insight is just standard jungle page. Uh, Sorcery is shit. Domination is shit, is like I mentioned before. Ultimate Hunter and Cosmic Mementos, you're gonna only get value out of them if you get takedowns and early ganks in, which you're not gonna do with Zed, because that's not how the champion works. So Magical Footwear, Cosmic Insight, and Attack Speed Rune, just for more clearing speed. Like the only thing this champ excels at in jungle is clearing speed and objectives, like taking speed. So abuse that, get yourself ahead so you could eventually want to go on the jungler, enemy jungler, and take their camps as well. I could make a guide on how to place that jungle, but it's not the purpose of this video, and I might make one in the future. This is the build for Conqueror Jungle Zed. You're always going to start blue pets. You don't need a pot because you're not early ganking anyways, and you're not really concerned with interacting with champions early level because you're very weak early as Zed. So get blue pets because once you start clearing the map, you're going to move around really fast. So this will just help you get more gold. Like red pet and green pet are not worth it for the way that I think that jungle should be played. Boost our lucidity because you need the summoner spell haste and the ability haste to play Conqueror. So the first item will be Hubris. I know people hate Hubris and I think it's bad and it's a snowball only item, but it's not. Think about the other starting items you could start on Zed. Like Voltaic, Eclipse, they're all bad at jungle. You don't need to slow the jungle camps, right? Voltaic isn't even good with Conqueror setup. Voltaic is only good if you go Assassin. And Eclipse, you don't need to proc Eclipse Shield on jungle camps. You can't. Like your only goal is to farm up and then gank once you're have enough gold. And Eclipse is not going to help you. You don't want a shield when you gank. You need more damage to kill people. And plus, the Hubris passive is when you get damage, or like you get AD after you kill a champion, and this will help you clear even faster. After you get a successful gank, you get more AD so you could hit your camps harder and clear them faster. Second item, Axiom Arc. You need more ability haste. You need to get your ult up more often so you can gank more often. And the third item is going to be Armor Pen item, Ceruleans or Cleaver. I've said this many times before in this video. Cleaver, if they have armor scaling champions or your team is full AD, and if not, you're gonna go Grudge. This is, again, the holy trifecta of Conqueror Zed jungle. There are so many holy trifectas in Zed because he spikes really hard at 3 items. And for the later situational items, probably just gonna go Shojin and Sundered Sky because your Conqueror Zed and you need more damage and just yeah, CDR in general. So Shojin and Sundered Sky. And if you need these situational items like for CC, shielding, or healing, then you'll build them. But if not, you will build these two for damage. And your goal as a jungler or Zed jungle is to deal damage to everything. So pretty straightforward build. For sixth item, again, it's very repeat of the other builds. If you got the Feast of Strength, you'll keep the boots and buy red pod. If not, you sell your boots for Yomas. Okay, so I'm gonna break down my runes in my build for this jungle game. And yeah, it's not too hard to break down. This is a pretty beefy team. Like Hakram, Rise, Cassante are all very bruisery, pretty tanky champions. So I think Conqueror was the best choice here. And in general, I think Conqueror is just the best on Zed because if you take like Domination, Electrocute, like even if you are ahead, like a enemy jungler like Lee Sin or Rengar with Conqueror will always outdo you, so you'll need Conqueror to match them. And I just think that most junglers will outduel Zed, so you need Conqueror to like be able to compete. But yeah, Rin are pretty standard. I already went over them. It's the standard Rin page. Hubris to Axiom, Cyrildas. Completed my boost because I was so ahead. And I said before, if you're very ahead and you don't need any more damage, you could just build your boots sooner to like stay ahead with like movement speed and utility so you don't get killed and give away your shutdown gold. And I built this after I completed my 3 item spike, so I built Serpents third. I mean, yeah, fourth because Cassante Shield, he had Spirit Visage as well. Hecarim has Eclipse. Rise has Seraphs. Kaisa has Alt and Barrier. And Rel has Prone Shields and Locket. So I thought Serpents was very valuable this game. And I also got Edge of Night because I don't want to get one shot by Rel. So the final rune and build I'll go over is Assassin's Edge Jungle. I think Conqueror's Edge Jungle is a lot more consistent and better in most cases, but there are certain few enemy comps in games that you could run this in, like if they have like 4 squishies, and it is slightly more effective than Conqueror. So just be wary of this and don't spam this every game. Play Conqueror if you're playing Zed Jungle. But recognize when you can take Electrocute. So I talked about before how Zed Jungle doesn't gank as much and mostly just abuses his fast clear speed and objective taking speed. So that's kind of the same case with Electrocute because Electrocute grows stronger with you as a champion. You don't need to proc it multiple times like Dark Harvest to make it grow stronger or like get champion takedowns. So it's basically just the same concept as Conqueror, except with Electrocute. Sudden impacts for best ganks, other two not in the question. Grizzly Mementos, Veteran, Ultimate Veteran as well. Talked about this before. Also talked about the secondary with the Conqueror Z like explanation or the jungle explanation. So yeah, these two trees are not that good. I think just go Magical Flower Consequence. Like, this is classic jungle runes and it's very effective. And you go with the attack speed rune because you need to clear fast. That is the purpose as a jungle. You can also take precision secondary. Like I thought about it a bit. I haven't tested any games with this, but I feel like it is viable. You could go attack speed into coup de grace. Like the same concept applies with the conqueror trees before. Your attack speed to clear, you're an objective taker, and coup de grace help with your ganks because you're ganking low health targets because you want to get solid ganks off with the results, not summoners blown. So I feel like this could also work. I've only tested this out, but I might start running this after. So let's go over assassin jungle build, like the Conqueror setup, you're gonna go blue pets because you're still gonna be playing the same. It's just that your damage is more like front loaded now. So you're an assassin with burst. You're not playing Conqueror with extended trades or poking from afar. You're all in, but you still are that jungle. You still need to farm, and this will help you farm and move around the map and get the most gold as possible. Boots are going to be lucidity every game. You still need the summoner haste for smite. It's very useful. And your core item will be hubris first. As I explained before, you don't need eclipse or voltaic first because you're not laning, you're jungling. Hubris is good for jungle. Then you're going to build voltaic second because I know I said you shouldn't build it first because you don't need it, but it helps a bit with clearing as a damage, like the physical damage on your autos, and it helps with your ganks because you're an assassin and you don't have CC, but it helps with the slow with the ganks. So building it second is fine. Third is going to be your armor pen item. I could go on again about when to build each, but I think you guys get it at this point. You could also build your situational items sooner if they don't have armor, but I always like to build armor pen before I see armor. Unless like it's very clear that people won't build armor. For later situational items, Axiom if you're ahead in snowballing, you want to get more ults off. Profane if you're more behind, or just the game is equal and you want to farm more. Edge of Night if you need CC reduction, and Serpent's Fang if you need shield reduction. You could build them sooner, or you could build them in whatever order you need, or like whatever order you see like the game is evolving into. Like if like they're building like Seraphs or Steraks and build Serpents sooner, right? Like you have to look at the enemy comp, look at what they're building, and decide what you should build before like they build stuff or when they are building stuff. It's an important skill to have to just know when to build what and just looking at enemy items all the time to make sure that you're optimizing correctly. But for the sixth item, you have tier 3 boots, keep them, buy red pots, and if you didn't win Feats of Strength, have tier 2 boots. Sell them for Yomas because you're an assassin and you need movement speed and lethality. But it's also a very straightforward build. Because as a role as a jungler, you're just dealing damage and taking objectives and yanking, so you don't really need like the safety of like mid lane items. Like if I'm playing mid lane assassins that I need Voltaic into Edge of Night because I'm playing against like Ari or something, right? But I'm jungling, so I'm interacting with everyone else on the map or interacting with my camps most of the time. So I kind of just need damage. I don't really need survivability or utility. So that's why the build is how it is. And it's not like similar to mid lane assassins that. The same is with jungle, like Conqueror. Um, like yeah, Conqueror is that jungle, you're building mostly damage. You're not building like much health or utility because you need to do damage. You're interacting with everyone else on the map and objectives. You don't need health because you're not going to be siding against people. They're very different like playstyles from mid lane to jungle. And so this game I decided to go Assassin's Edge Jungle because looking at their team comp, they basically have four squishies like Akali, Akshan, Hui, Xerath. They're all very squishy champions, and I don't have to interact with Jarvan. I could just go around the map and one shot everyone else. Like there's no point for me to go conquer and try to duel him when I could just take Electrocute and assassinate these laners instead. So this is one of the few cases where Electrocute jungle is better than Conqueror, but Conqueror is still viable. I just think that Electrocute was better in this situation for sure. Runes are standard. Talked about them before. Hubris, Voltaic. I built Edge because I wanted to assassinate these people better, like Hui Xerath. If I had an Edge Knight shield, I don't have to worry about getting stunned. Normally, I told you guys I would have built armor pen first, but they weren't building any armor. Actually, Jarvan and Nicole are building armor, but the important targets like the mid laner ADC and support, they didn't have armor, so I skipped armor pen third and I went Edge of Night. Then I went armor pen last item because I want to be able to kill a collie as well. So that's the end of the guide. If you're still here, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch the video, as I spent a lot of time on this. I'm just getting started with content creation, so I apologize if it's scuffed, because I know it's really scuffed. But if you found this video helpful, I'd be grateful if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel, because I'll be making more videos like this and stream highlights soon. If you have any questions, you could comment down below or reach out to me on my socials in the bio of this video. I'll make sure to answer to everyone. Yeah, thank you again. If you guys have any recommendations for future videos and stuff I didn't cover in this video, because I solely want to focus on runes and builds, I didn't really want to go into other stuff like combos because you could find that in any other video on YouTube. But if you want me to work on like champion specific matchups, combo guides, yeah, or jungle pathing guides, let me know and I'll get to work on them. Peace.